Welcome back to this 5-part video series about how to structure and buy real estate using creative financing strategies. This is video 5 in the series, and on this video, I'm going to show you 3 different methods to structure and buy real estate using a creative financing strategy known as lease options. Coming up. Hi, it's Jerry Norton, the nation's leading expert on flipping real estate. And if you're new here to make more money in less time flipping real estate so that you can live your dream life, subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon to get notified when new videos are released. Of all of the creative financing strategies we've discussed in this 5-video series, a lease option, or what's more formally known as a lease with the option to purchase, is perhaps the most flexible structure. They're easy to get into and they're easy to get out of for both the buyer and the seller, as you'll learn on this video. Let's discuss what a lease option is, and more importantly, how to use it as an investment strategy to acquire deals with little to no money, and even how to use lease options to flip houses for big profits. A lease option is a contract between the owner and a buyer to lease the property for a specified time, and at the end of that rental period, the buyer has the option to purchase the property, usually for a pre-agreed upon price. And it's important to know that the option part of the agreement means that the tenant buyer has the option to buy but is not obligated, whereas the seller does not have the option to sell and is obligated. In other words, it binds the seller to sell, but it does not bind the buyer to buy. Now, lease options are very common when a buyer wants to buy a property but can't qualify for traditional financing yet and needs some more time to improve credit or save money, etc. Now, lease option gives the buyer assurance that they will have the first right of refusal to buy the property, and it gives the seller rental income from a more committed tenant who hopefully will eventually buy the property. Now, typically, to show good faith, the tenant buyer puts down an upfront, non-refundable option fee or consideration of 3 to 10%. That is to be applied to the purchase, but the amount is completely negotiable, and it's common for a portion of the monthly rent to also be applied to the purchase, usually $50 up to $200 depending on the lease. Now, if the tenant decides not to exercise the option and does not buy the property for whatever reason, when the lease terminates, the owner keeps the option money. Now, compared to other creative financing strategies such as seller financing or a land contract, a lease option is the easiest and it's the most favorable method for the seller to terminate the agreement and take back the property. Now, by the way, before I forget, all of the links to the videos in this 5-part video series about structuring and buying real estate with creative financing are in the description box below this video. You can watch those later. So let me illustrate how a lease option works by sharing with you a deal that I recently did where I was the seller and I structured a lease option with a buyer. And then I'll share with you 3 different methods to acquire deals on the buy side with little to no money down using the lease option strategy. So one of my house flipping strategies is to build and sell new construction homes. Now, I recently built this house and I listed it for sale to flip for $700,000. And by the way, selling it for $700,000 would make me a 6-figure profit on that one deal. And while it was for sale for $700,000, I had a buyer come forward who fell in love with the home and he really wanted to buy it, but he needed to sell his home first in order to be able to buy my home. So he made an offer for $700,000 contingent on his house selling first. Now, I didn't want to go under contract with no idea of how long it would take him to sell his house, so I rejected his offer, and instead I proposed that we do a lease option. That way he could move into the home already and he would have 1 year to get his other house sold. So he agreed to pay $3,500 a month in rent for 1 year with an option to buy at the end of the lease for $750,000, not $700,000. Remember, when using creative financing, typically the buyer pays more to the seller for being flexible. Now, the buyer also paid a $75,000 or 10% non-refundable option fee. Now, it actually only took him 4 months to sell his house, exercise his option, and buy my house for $750,000. In this case, both parties benefited. The buyer got to move in right away while he was waiting for his house to sell. And as the seller, not only did I make cash flow while waiting another 4 months, and I made an additional $50,000 profit for being flexible and willing to wait and do a lease option deal. Now, I share that story to illustrate how to structure a lease option, but the real purpose of this video is to show you how to use lease options to acquire homes as an investor with little to no money down using lease options. So let's break down 3 different methods. But first, today's video is brought to you by Flipster, the #1 house flipping deal management platform on the market. If you've never heard of Flipster, not only does it organize, streamline, and automate all of the steps of flipping houses, but it actually finds and funds deals for you. So whether you're working on your first deal or you're flipping houses every month, Flipster can help you get to the next level. If you're into flipping houses, you owe it yourself to check it out. To learn more and see it in action, just go to getflipster.com or click the link in the description. The first method is called a sandwich lease option. Now, this is when you structure to buy a house on lease option with favorable terms from a motivated seller and then immediately turn around and sell the property to a new end buyer on a lease option for even more favorable terms. The idea is to sandwich the two lease options together and make a spread on the difference. For example, let's say that you agree to buy a house on lease option with an option price of $236,000 and an option fee of $12,000, which is 5%, and a monthly rental payment of $1,500. Then you turn around and immediately do a lease option with a new tenant buyer with an option to buy the same property for $250,000 with an option fee of $20,000, which is 8%, and a monthly rental payment of $1,800. So you sandwich your lease with a new lease and you make a spread of $14,000 profit when the end buyer exercises the option and buys the house for $250,000. But up front, you put in your pocket $8,000 from the option fee spread and you make an additional $300 a month cash flow. Now, obviously, a sandwich lease is a longer-term hold strategy, and for this to work out, the end buyer tenant needs to perform on their contract with you, the investor, so that you can turn around and perform on your contract with the seller. Now, if that sounds like a headache and you're not really into buy and hold and dealing with tenants, toilets, and turnovers, there are two other strategies that are short-term. So method number 2 is to wholesale your lease option contract. Using the same example, if you were able to negotiate and contract those same favorable terms with a motivated seller, another investor would gladly buy the rights to that lease option contract. This would be an investor who wants to sandwich lease and deal with an end buyer. So let's take a look again at that previous example. On this deal, if an investor were to buy the rights to the lease option contract from you and then sandwich lease the property for the same terms, there would be a spread on the deal of $14,000 when the home eventually sells. There would be a spread of $8,000 on the option fee and a monthly cash flow spread of $300. Of these 3 different profit centers on that deal, you could charge $8,000 as a wholesale fee to the investor who steps in and gets to keep the other upsides of $14,000 on the buy and $300 a month cash flow. Okay, so the third method is to acquire the property on lease option terms, and then rather than carry it long-term as a rental or sandwich lease it, you turn around and flip it for a profit. For example, let's say that you found a property and your goal was to spend $10,000 rehabbing the house and then to immediately flip it for $250,000 and do it in 90 days. Here are the 5 steps to follow. First, establish a low price with the seller by making an all-cash offer following the all-cash formula, which is 70% of ARV less repairs. So in our example, if the ARV is $250,000 and repairs are $10,000, the formula would be $250,000 times 0.7 minus $10,000 in repairs equals $165,000 for a cash offer price. Now, step 2 is to follow up by making a lease option offer for higher following a creative financing buy price formula, which is 85% of ARV less repairs. So if the ARV is $250,000 and it needs $10,000 in work, the formula would be $250,000 times 0.85 minus $10,000 in repairs equals $202,500 as your lease option buy price offer. Now, by offering a low cash offer and then a higher lease option offer, it gives the seller the option to take less money now or more money later. Step number 3 is to negotiate favorable terms. Since your plan is to flip it, give the seller more monthly rent and a shorter option period in exchange for a lower option fee. So for example, if the going rate for leases was $1,500, offer to pay $1,800 a month. And instead of a 3 or 5 year term, offer a 1-year term. Then, in exchange for a higher monthly rent and a shorter option term, offer to pay a really low option fee of like $100. Remember, your plan is to flip the property in 90 days, so paying $300 more a month for 3 months in rent is worth it for paying less in an option fee, and a 1-year term is more than enough time to flip it. Another way to get the seller to agree to a really low option fee of like $100 is explain that you're going to put $10,000 into the property in the form of repairs in lieu of an option fee. This will increase the value of the property and still shows the seller a commitment to have skin in the game. Now, you could even offer to put the $10,000 in escrow at closing to be used for the renovation to make the seller feel more comfortable. All right, if you learned something on today's video, show some love, hit that like button right now and leave a comment. Let me know your biggest takeaway from this video and if you plan on using lease options to do more deals. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm dedicated to helping you make more money in less time flipping houses so you can live your dream life. Now I hope you enjoyed this 5-part video series about creative financing. I want you to watch this next video where I've got another creative financing strategy where you actually partner with the seller on the deal to flip. Now you don't want to miss that video, so watch it right now. And remember, it's not about the money, it's about having the time and freedom to have, be, do, and give everything that matters in life. That's what it's all about, and I'll see you on the next video.